Public Storage announcing this week they've raised another $500 million to add to their silo. Young power broker Austin McLeod talk about the impact this will have on the industry and talks also about the state of ground-up development. Self-Storage has its first chief artificial intelligence officer, 10 Federal, announcing that they've hired from the head of the class. Welcome to an action-packed episode of Storage Unlocked, brought to you by PB Brown General Contractors. I am your host, Thaddeus Campbell, Director of Business Development and Strategic Branding at S3 Partners. Well, Public Storage has been dominating the headlines for the last couple of months. It started at their Q4 earnings call, of course, announcing that Tom Boyle would succeed Joe Russell as CEO of the company. That transition took place April 1st. And began the dawn of the PS 4.0 era. The Frisco, Texas-based company, of course, announcing that PS 4.0 would feature heavily their PS Now platform. The company has leaned heavily into technology over the last few years and plan to continue to do so. Of course, now they announced that they've raised $500 million in new capital raised through the sale of senior notes. Public Storage carries an A rating with Standard & Poor's and an A2 rating with Moody's, allowing them to raise this capital at a 5% interest rate. I spoke with one senior member of the self-storage industry who says he's not surprised they were able to secure this debt given the leverage that the company has overall. Public Storage, extremely low debt to complete value of their assets, and this gives them part of the reason they have such a strong debt rating or credit rating, and also allows them to raise this capital, even on the back of the $4 billion they raised for the NSA acquisition. Of course, that $4 billion will not show up on their books the way it was structured. He also says this might make it a little tougher for individual companies to compete on larger portfolio deals. Still sees plenty of runway on individual acquisitions for smaller PE firms and other REITs. Interesting note, Public Storage very clearly stated in the announcement of the raise that this money is for acquisition, development, and lending. Well, CubeSmart and CBRE announced back in February they've embarked on a $250 million joint venture. They already acquired one asset in Phoenix at the announcement of that JV agreement. Extra Space and Blue Vista back in November announced their own $600 million joint venture agreement. And SmartStop got the ball rolling only 2 months after their IPO last April, a June 2025 announcement that they had sold $500 million in Canadian Maple bonds, roughly $350 million US dollars. All told, you're talking about $1.7 billion in capital raised by the REITs for the purpose of acquiring, developing, and self-storage, or lending, of course, as well. All of which sure to have a big impact on what's going on in the industry.
It certainly sends a message to the marketplace that says transaction velocity should be higher in 2026. I'm already seeing that in our pipeline, and just in tracking the market, I do think that this year will exceed last year's volume.
Austin McLeod, of course, the Senior Vice President and Director of Self-Storage for Matthews Real Estate, was kind enough to hop on with me. McLeod says clearly Public Storage is optimistic on what's going on in the market. They're bullish on upcoming years and must believe internally that the bottom of what we've been going through is now over. We will be back right after a quick word from our sponsor with more from the Senior VP and Director of Self-Storage at Matthews Real Estate. Storage Unlocked is brought to you by PB Brown. Over $1 billion in ground-up construction delivered, from single-story to Manhattan high-rise, institutional grade, engineered for performance, and designed to stand out. Great storage catches the consumer's eye, drives traffic, and helps lease-up happen faster. From Manhattan to Miami, California to Hawaii, PB Brown is the GC to trust for your multi-million-dollar storage development. So grateful to Hano Montoya and Guy Sacento for supporting the show. Really enjoy having PB Brown as our title sponsor. Of course, Austin McLeod, as I said, Senior Vice President, Director of Self-Storage for Matthews Real Estate, kind enough to jump on with me earlier this week. His market update landed in my email earlier this week. And of course, as always with Austin, I was blown away by the quality of information he included in that. One of the things he highlighted in his market report was statistics showing that ground up development is finally actually receding. You guys know on the show, I've been talking about this constantly over a long period of time, the need in the self-storage industry for a pullback in ground up development. Matthews said rising interest rates and declining movement have been a problem for existing assets, but he said that has not been the biggest issue.
Largely, the challenges have been due to oversupply. And if some of these markets, especially that are growing very rapidly from a population standpoint, can get some relief on the supply side, I think those facilities would perform a lot better, and a lot of these projects would, start to hit the numbers that they were originally anticipating.
This is a sentiment that we've heard repeatedly over the last few months on the show. Of course, Zach Dickens, the CIO at Extra Space, joining the show back in February, talked about how if he had a magic wand, of course, he would wave it to slow down development. McLeod's talking about how important that will be to what's going on with existing assets, many of which over the last few years have failed to hit the economic projections in their pro forma. So you can check out Austin's market report. There is a link for you on the screen that you will be able to go to that market report. And on that page, you can also sign up so that his market reports end up in your email as well. One more time, want to thank incredible young broker, less than 30 years old. He's been in self-storage now for almost a decade, which is hard for me to fathom. He might be 30 now. I guess I got to ask him that. I probably shouldn't throw his age out there, but Austin McLeod, if you're at ISS right now, you're in Vegas, make sure you say hi to Austin. And as I said, click the link, sign up for his newsletter. A lot of great information there. Well, we had another massive announcement this week, this time from the team at 10 Federal. That, of course, the North Carolina-based company, long considered a tech-focused operator of self-storage. This week, they lean even further into technology with the announcement that they have hired a chief AI officer, the first C-suite level executive purely dedicated to AI in the self-storage industry. Christopher Taylor was hired straight out of Nvidia. He's been consulting for 10 Federal and their subsidiary DaVinci Lock. And Taylor says the shift was not him leaving the tech world, quite the opposite.
10 Federal, I've come to find, is more of a tech company that operates in the commercial real estate industry. So while I'm transferring from Nvidia, which is, the namesake, to 10 Federal, it's still a tech transfer.
Taylor says he was impressed by the tech-forward operation at 10 Federal, and he expects they will trailblaze building a self-storage operation foundationally on top of artificial intelligence. Of course, Chris got to do a deep dive in self-storage and in the North Carolina-based company while he was consulting for them over a 2-year period.
It was quite actually impressive where they had utilized it within their company in all different aspects to optimize workflows and make people's lives easier and be able to scale without having to pull in too much headcount.
Also got to catch up with the president of 10 Federal, Andrew Capranos. He was a recent guest on my Stories Behind the Door podcast. You can catch that full episode and see just how tech-focused that company is at the link on the screen. A fantastic episode, and and now that I look back, gave some forewarning to what this would be. And Capranos did not try to understate the importance of the Taylor hire.
I think it's huge. One, I think it's needed in the industry and where we're headed, and really proud of the team for everything that we've done up to this point. But we're at an inflection point.
Fascinating thing that Andrew shared with me that I found incredible is there's just not a pool of candidates to look at that's very large for this type of a role, because AI is so new and there are so few people that have been involved at a high level up to this point. That being said, 10 Federal had a very clear goal in their search to fill the position.
He was doing code on autonomous driving vehicles, on the latest data center technologies. And he was in the top 1% of all the practitioners at Nvidia. So, we really were very fortunate to be able to get the best of the best.
Of course, this comes on the back of the aforementioned public storage PS Now strategy. And Capranos expects there will be a clear divide in the next 5 years on who leans in heavily to AI and who are the late adopters. I, of course, would have been remiss if I didn't take advantage of the opportunity to chat with Christopher Taylor, his inside knowledge from his time at Nvidia about the state of AI and where it's going.
When I first started at Nvidia, I was working on autonomous vehicles, and I had a customer, Rivian, who I was working on a product for. And for a total case example is we had 2 engineers working full-time for 18 months. It took roughly 3 man-years to accomplish this task. At the beginning of this year, on our new platform, I was able to utilize AI and take 3 man-years worth of work and do it on the new platform in less than 3 weeks. So that's an insane speed up.
Fascinating conversation with Christopher Taylor and with Andrew Capranos about the direction that we're seeing AI take everything, not just what's going on in self-storage, but of course with them in self-storage as well. Chris and Andrew said the same thing separately, which is that the people that are going to win in self-storage or anywhere else for that matter in the AI era are those who foundationally use AI to build their platform on top of. They both said the bolt-on strategy where you hire outside things to come in and attach to what you're doing internally, they don't see those folks being as successful. This podcast host, for one, is very excited to watch that journey and see where AI takes 10 Federal and others in the self-storage industry. Again, huge thanks to both of them. They were out at ISS this week and took time out of their busy schedule to come and share their insights with the show. I am very grateful for them taking the time, and congratulations to the 10 Federal team for what I think is a pivotal moment in our industry. Don't go anywhere. In 30 seconds, we'll be back with another incredible episode of How Faith Fuels Your Business with the inspiration for our industry, Jane Sauls. In self-storage or small bay flex, execution matters. S3 Partners moves projects from concept to completion with 3 integrated services. Project Sync manages your development, vendors, timelines, budgets, and construction oversight. Market Expansion sources opportunities in the right markets to grow your pipeline. And Deal Sync delivers institutional level underwriting so you can pursue projects with confidence, helping you move faster and build smarter. S3 Partners, storage, flex, growth. Well, the recent announcement of Public Storage planning to acquire NSA Storage is only the latest in a string of announcements that have convinced me even more heavily that our state, national, and regional SSA organizations need us more than ever. Something I've felt strongly for years, but especially as I've started the Storage Unlocked podcast, I want to take time in almost every show to highlight upcoming events that I hope the folks watching will get involved with. As our industry consolidates, there are fewer and fewer owners and operators in the space. It's even more important that we get involved, especially in the face of the legal and legislative challenges. Couple of big upcoming events: the Mid-Atlantic Self-Storage Show down at National Harbor, the Gaylord National in June 11th and 12th. And going back to my home, the Northeast Storage Expo at Foxwoods in Connecticut. First casino I was ever in, as a side note, back when I turned 21 years old. NISA and the Maine Self-Storage Association hosting that event. That is May 13th to the 14th. Strongly urge all you folks to attend if you can get to those shows. Final note for the Northeast Storage Expo: if you use Thaddeus10 as the coupon code, you will get a discount off of your registration fee. Certainly hope to see all of you in Foxwoods at the Northeast Storage Expo, and then down at National Harbor. If you haven't been to National Harbor, also an incredible, incredible place to hang out. So Listen, I consider myself to be an extremely upbeat person, to try and be positive all the time, but nobody, not even Jessica Johnson and her incredible outfits that you see her in at every trade show event, is more infectiously positive than today's guest on how faith fuels your business. Jane Sauls is a treasure to the self-storage industry. And 20 plus years after touching every aspect of our industry, she hasn't stopped leading with her faith
situation to where I'm not coming into someone else's company every day, right? So I do have that edge, if you will. And then I have another edge because I'm partners with my son, Luke. Since I've raised him, if we're not like-minded, what have I done, right? I don't know how to separate professional and personal anyway. I just am who I am, right? And so it really doesn't matter who's on the other end of the line. They're going to get the same Jane. And sometimes that's a good thing. And maybe some days it's not so good. And then the good part about that is when you actually own the company with that of your son, you're able to set out those core values from day one, right? And so our true mission is growing by serving. And as we started the company, Luke was like, we've got to have written core values. I was busy and like other things going on. And I'm just like, yeah, we need some of those. So it is such a blessing to be able to have someone pencil those down. And when they give it to you, it's their raising, right? And so like the very first one of our core values is believe big. And so like if you're going to come be a part of our team, you're going to have to understand or be in alignment with truly we are responsible for our efforts. And then God delivers those results. Sometimes it's in the battles and sometimes it's in the blessings. You know, we referred to briefly the other day about those hard years that we've just gotten through in 23-ish and 4-ish. But like the struggle is real. And that's when we have the opportunity to put that faith into place. And so there was at one point, I was totally defeated that day. I was just down. I was like, another one's about to fall apart. You see it unfolding about to fall apart. I'm just kind of beside myself because we've done every right. You know, we've done all the things that we're supposed to do and nothing's going to work out for us. And there's nothing we can do to turn it around. And so my exact words was, this is hard. This is hard. Like, I just don't know. And it gets good when you work with that family member that can come back at you and say, no, mother, we've done hard. And this is not hard. This is not hard. This is just another day at the office. What you may not know is that back in 2009, when I got very sick for about 5 years and was not even able to walk and saw doctor after doctor after doctor that told me that that was going to be my new normal, Luke actually, as a 12-year-old, physically picked me up and carried me like a baby because I wasn't able to put one foot in front of the other. And so when you see us smiling because commercial real estate's on the down low, that's a genuine smile. That doesn't mean that we are enjoying those hard times, but the perspective we've got, if we have our health and we have our family members around us, what else? Like, that is just gold. And to my friends today who are struggling and that they may not have that health, or they may just have lost that family member, then you got to go all the way, reel it back in and go back to the foundation and the fundamental of that salvation, right? That is where the joy comes from, is in having Jesus Christ as your personal savior. We refer to it in the office still to this day, and in the raising of the boys, you have to keep your happy circle tight, very tight. And so what we mean by that is our peace and our joy, it comes from within, and it's never dependent on the circumstances around us. Luke is the middle son. He has an older and a younger brother, just a couple years in between each one of them, and then a wonderful husband as well. And all 5 of us are truly, we've just always been very so close and tight. Being able to transition into a business with one of them has been the icing on top, because as a boy mom, pretty much what normally happens in most situations after high school and college graduation, right? They move on to whatever that is. And of course, we love when they call us back and tell us about their victories and their, all of that good stuff. But the sweetness of it is being able to see him in his battles and in his blessings. I do appreciate and understand that his struggles, and all three of them, their struggles will make them the men that they become. And it's not for me to fix. I strongly believe that our approach can either be, we can try to level the playing field, that whole life ain't fair card, or we can work hard with the player as ourselves as a player and those around us. And so just becoming a better player every day, hands down, my sons make me a better player.
What an inspiration. So many gems from that conversation. And it reminds me again how important and impactful this How Faith Fuels Your Business segment is to the show and to the industry. Once again, always want to give it a subscribe to the YouTube channel. This episode will be live on the YouTube channel by Monday. You can see that full interview with Jane Sauls, not just the edited version we do for Storage Unlocked. I want to give amazing credit, as always, to my friend Cam Pactonat. Many of you may know Cam has started his own self-storage company. So reach out to Cam through LinkedIn. If you don't know how to get a hold of him, you can reach out to him through me. Of course, did amazing work for DXD for years and now launching his own investment company. So grateful that he called with this suggestion of How Faith Fuels Your Business. And got to give kudos to my former co-host, Chris Berg, who, of course, helped me dawn this episode or this segment in the show. So Jane Sauls, incredible inspiration to the industry, somebody that for 5 years could not walk, fought through it, mentally so tough. And with her son, Luke Sauls, runs Sauls Commercial Real Estate. Not hard to understand why she's been so successful and so impactful in our industry. Well, that's it for this week's episode of the show. Don't forget to mark your calendars for next week, Thursday, 1 o'clock, a very special episode. Of course, a lot of folks in self-storage right now looking at small bay flex. We're going to have a very special small bay flex development episode with my boss, Barry Sherman. Of course, 30 plus years of building industrial buildings, included dozens of small bay flex buildings. Wayne Woolsey, head of Kiwi 2 Steel. Of course, they're currently building almost double-figure small bay flex projects around the country. Incredible steel provider. His crew's second to none, able to give great insight into some key pieces you're going to want to know if you're looking at doing a small bay flex development. And the final member of our roundtable is the guy who wrote the book on flex. It's called Flex Space Domination, the book written by Cody Payne and his team at Flex Parks USA. So I'm really excited. Next Thursday, 1 o'clock on Storage Unlocked, we're going to do a Flex roundtable on development. Cody Payne, Barry Sherman, Wayne Woolsey. Make sure to mark your calendars. That will be live on LinkedIn. Of course, you can see the full episode of Storage Unlocked on the YouTube channel at any time. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. That's it for this week's episode. We'll see everybody next week. One last shout out to my partners, my sponsors at PB Brown General Contractors.